All right. Greetings, brothers and sisters. My name is Brother John Hargrove, Service President for Division 421 here in Atlanta. Tonight is session 12 of our officers training. We'll be going over the questions from lesson 10 titled Economy and do the reading for lesson 11 titled Man. As always, first thing that we do to open up our meetings is our pledge to the UNIA flag. We'll do that briefly. If everyone would, please come off mute, put your black fist in the air, and repeat after me. I commit my body, mind, and spirit. Wait, and let me do the whole. I commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, black, and green.
Cooperation and mutual respect. This inaugural feature on Intervlog serves as a powerful reminder of why.
You got some background coming in. Is everybody with me? Okay. I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and the liberation of her scattered Black children.
I dedicate my life to Mother Africa and her scattered Black children.
I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism.
I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism.
And I promise that our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
And I promise
our children will be instilled purpose and knowledge of themselves
as African people.
In order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail.
In order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail.
Until all Black people are free and united.
All Black people are free and united.
Through one God.
Through one God.
One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
One destiny.
Race first. Okay. You go back to mute and until we get to the questions. I'll just read it from here for sake of legibility. Any questions or concerns before we get started on the questions for lesson 10? No questions, no concerns. Everybody ready? Okay. All right, question number 1. What kind of economy does lesson 10 deal with? Talking economy. I think it's good to know what type of economy we're speaking about. What type of economy will we be discussing in lesson 10?
Financial.
Thank you, Attorney Motep. Thank you, Attorney Motep. It's financial economy. So Attorney Motep helped us out. The first one. See character. Let me show y'all what I'm sharing. I'm sorry. Going through the text. Financial. These are the gimme questions. If we having a hard time with these questions, we're gonna have a hard time with this course. First sentence that Mr. Garvey says in this lesson: there are several kinds of economy, but this subject deals specifically, I think is the word he uses, specifically with financial economy. So we are discussing financial economy. Next question. What does it mean to be on the safe side of a bargain? Someone besides Attorney Motel.
Never exhausting yourself.
Never exhausting yourself. That's a great way of saying it. Yeah. Mr. Garvey says, and this is this is not a, a deep philosophical question or anything like that. I don't know if this one is on the exam, but Mr. Garvey talks about um, safety and risk in regards to finances. He wants us to make sure that when we are doing financial business, that we're on the safe side of any transactions. I'll go to the book briefly on that. Share. Economy is based on good and sane judgment, practice of it, that you must always be on the safe side of your bargains and dealings, never exhaust yourself, always have a reserve. So savings reserved, not exhausting your funds is the first things that Mr. Garvey emphasizes in this lesson. Okay. Number 3, what is something we should always have in regards to economy, and that is for safety or security? This is related to always not exhausting ourselves. Economics.
Always having something to fall back on.
Worry about clarity.
Yes, always win. And what does that mean from a financial economic standpoint?
Have a savings.
Pretty much, yeah. Always have some money to fall back on. But again, don't exhaust yourself. Don't empty out the account, basically. Never go to the point where you have to empty out the account. What is the prop of life that pays for all necessities and offers security for all opportunities? Prop of life for economy. Basically, the essence of financial economy. Last time we used the word prop was character. And Mr. Garvey was saying that the prop for character was honesty. Now we're in lesson 10, economy. What is the prop for life from an economic standpoint?
Never living outside of your means.
No. I'm looking for it's a thing. It's really a tool, a resource. It's kind of, but it's something. It's a particular thing. It's one particular thing.
Money.
Money is the prop of life.
Yes, it's money. Money is the answer. We'll go to the book. See what Mr. Garvey says specifically about that. But I think it's just straightforward. He just says money is the prop for life. There should always be something left over, fall back in time of need. Money is the prop of life. It pays in that it pays for all necessities and offers security for all opportunities. In earning money, one should never spend as much money as we earn. That is bad business. So, foundation of, coming to the realization that money is a component of life. Money is the foundation of economy. We need it. So, just like anything else that we need, let's make sure we have a reserve. We talk about having reserves for in case of emergency, you got your food reserve, you got your water reserve, batteries and things like that for survival. This is, from an economic standpoint, the same concept, making sure we have finances. We don't exhaust ourselves financially, basically. Okay. And are there any questions so far? Questions so far? Okay. In regards to, the concept of savings, what percentage of our income does Mr. Garvey recommend that we should be able to save?
Got that one. It says save between at least 15 to 20%.
Yes, absolutely. Very straightforward. If you make $1,000 a month, try to save $150, $200 a month. Very straightforward. Any questions on that? Also very important. If we can, instill these financial principles at an early stage, I see this having a significant benefit for any individual in the long run. So start now, trying to save 15, 20% of your funds. Try to make 2025 a year, where you can have 15 or 20% more in your savings than you did last year. Okay, what causes us to become, quote, a slave working for somebody else? What did Garvey say from a financial standpoint would cause us to be, quote, a slave working for somebody else?
Interest.
Interest.
Interest
Yep.
rate.
Yep. And where does interest come from usually? Well, there's two ways you can look at it.
Borrowing money.
Borrowing, yeah. Loans, either loans or financing. So we want to stay away from situations where we are in a position where we have to pay interest. We needed $1,000, but we had to borrow that $1,000, and now we got to pay back $1,200. So that $200 of interest is what Mr. Garvey considers a position that makes you a slave working for somebody else, because they're getting that extra money in addition to what they loaned out. Questions, comments? So try to avoid situations where we have to use or pay back interest. If we can't afford it up front, we need to probably save our money, increase our funds before we overextend ourselves. Garvey says it's number 7. Garvey says, quote, "It is bad business to go into any business without enough blank to run that business. 99 out of 100 cases will fail." But should we not go into any business without enough? What's something that you could never really have too much of when you're going into business?
Money.
Money. What's the word Mr. Garvey uses? He doesn't use money, but he uses a different specific word. But it is money.
Capital.
Capital. Absolutely. Someone got it in the chat as well. Money's capital is the word I'm looking for. We'll talk a little bit more about capital, specifically the difference between capital and profit. But capital, Mr. Garvey says it's bad business to go into any business without enough capital to run that business. 99 out of 100 cases will fail. So money, savings, having enough capital as we go into business endeavors. Questions, comments so far? Okay, next question, number 8. If we are organizing an event, so this is for our organizers, our leaders, our event, those that wish to have events and things like that. If we're organizing an event, a profitable event, not a charitable event, obviously, what percentage of profit should we expect? And second part of that question, if there is no profit, then what are we taking? A quarter, brother Eric says a quarter, so that'd be 25%.
It's 25%, and if you're not making it proper, you're taking a risk.
All right, all right. Is it actually is it 25% in the book? I thought it was 20% personally.
And the book it says 25%.
Okay. All right. Let me jump over to the text for everyone. Well, let me see what I got in here first. $45%. Yep. If there's no profit, you are taking a risk. You are wasting time. Very important point, very important concept. It's small, it's short, it can be overlooked easily, but officers, leaders, this is important. And this is part of the reason why there's been some pushback on us having events and programs. If we're not being financially profitable, then we are I would say we're mismanaging our people's funds, and that's not something that we will do here at 421. We have to make sure that if we're asking the division for an expense of $400, $500, that we're able to bring back those funds plus 25% profit is what Mr. Garvey says. If we're not doing that, we're taking a risk, because continuously doing that, obviously you can't continue to be unprofitable. That's how businesses and organizations no longer remain in existence. So we have to be financially wise, financially profitable, and make sure that there's always some funds in our account. Any questions or comments so far? Chat. Gotcha. Thank you. Yes, let's see, Dr. Kuda. Okay, this one's a little small. Let me see. I gotta read. I'm still supposed to. How does a president or representative of the UNIA occupy a position of eminence that calls for the greatest recognition of service rendered, according to Mr. Garvey? That's a very important statement. This is all officers, leaders, Garveyites should be aspiring to meet this criteria. How does a president or representative of the UNI occupy a position of eminence that calls for the greatest recognition of service rendered, according to Mr. Garvey? And I'm going.
It says a president or representative who can show that for the year he or she has turned over 500, 1,000, or 10,000 net to the association occupies a position of eminence that calls for the greatest recognition of service rendered.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess if the president can show they actually made a profit, then that's like the greatest recognition.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sister Desiree. Very well stated, straight from the text. Mr. Garvey is very, very, very clear. Our job as leaders, as Garveyites, as members of the UNIA, is to raise funds. And if we aspire for recognition, that should be based upon our ability to raise funds. So we should be able to say to our leadership, hey, we've brought in X amount of funds, and usually those funds correlate to membership. If we bring in 50 members, then that'll be membership dues for 50 members. So it's hundreds of dollars that you're bringing into the organization for the organization. But it's not about lip service. It's not about you know there is an aspect of relationships, and having good relationships with leadership. But at the end of the day, our position of eminence comes down to our, as I call it, our financial record. Very straightforward, very clear. Any questions or comments on that? On the question, I think it's question 9 technically. Everybody clear? So if we want recognition, we should be bringing in funds. Basically, that's the correlation. Next question: how are men and women promoted? Garvey says, quote, "It is the only standard by which you can judge the ability of man." How are men and women promoted, according to Mr. Garvey, an economy lesson?
Him and his family, that they have
on their record.
a simple chaplain.
So I guess you promote it by, what you contribute, what you bring to the table.
Thank you, Sister Desiree, Sister Aquette. Cat. Very well said. And that's, kind of what I was just saying previously. I'm trying to switch back to that screen. I'm sorry. On their record must be profitable. Let's go to the book on that one. Top of page 87. Men and women are promoted on their record. Their record must be profitable. So we must show, not, hey, we had 6 events this year and we spent, $1,200, but we didn't bring nothing in. Like that's great. Y'all, sound like y'all had a good time. But we should be able to say, no matter how many events or programs, we should just be able to say, hey, we brought in $5,000, $10,000 into the organization this year, this month, whatever it may be. And that is, according to what I'm reading, that is how we are recognized and promoted. Record must be profitable. If their record is that of failure, they remain failures until they can prove otherwise. There's no other standard by which you can judge the ability of a man. That's very important. I have to internalize that. All aspiring leaders, I would argue, should internalize that. From a UNIA standpoint, it's not about how we feel about each other. It's not about, we like the same food, we're vegans or we're carnivores or we have the same religion, and that, gets you promoted. It's about our financial record. There's no other standard by which we can judge the ability of a man. This is a quote from Mr. Garvey, other than what they're bringing to the table financially. And obviously, I think tongue in cheek is the phrase. Like, we don't have to take this extremely literally as if that's the only importance that people bring. Obviously, you must be honest, hygiene, cleanliness, and those things. But I think this just stresses the importance of that component from a organizational standpoint. We must understand our goals. We must understand what it is that we're trying to do, and we must acknowledge and recognize those that are helping us to achieve that goal. Let's not overlook the people that are bringing funds into the organization. It says, always seek to get substantial value for their work, because you will never be able to recall them as they move along. Always get substantial word value for their work, because you'll never be able to. I'm not sure what that last part is. I feel like it's like once they are, you don't get that time back. So it's like if you got a valuable person in your presence and you're not getting the value from them, when they, the next year, whatever, when they move on and do something else, you can never get that value and that time back. So strike the iron while it's hot. Questions, comments on the standard by which we judge the ability of a man economically. All right. Excuse this. When should we pay more for something if we can get it at a cheaper price?
Never.
Yes, very straightforward. So, supposed to be not a trick question, but a straightforward question. Uh, but also reaffirmation for us as leadership. And we've even, discussed this on higher levels, on parent body levels, in regards to getting things done. But we should always look for the best price, obviously. We're not going to go too deep into this, but it just doesn't make sense. It's wasting money. And again, this is not, we're representatives now. So it's not just our money, it's not just, yeah, you worked hard for it, you can waste it. But as a leader of an organization now, this is the community's funds. And we can't waste it. So if there's something that we need from the organization, if it's a computer or a phone or a vehicle or whatever it may be, we have an obligation to find the best price on behalf of the organization. Questions or comments? Always look around first, is what Mr. Garvey says. And yeah, I don't want to go too deep into that. The deep part about it is when we talk about race first and getting things from our people first, and that challenge. Sometimes we not paying more, and that's acceptable in some. Harvey says we should always try to find the best price. Don't throw money away and look around.
I knew the Most High would have somebody.
Came on mute.
That's how the ancestors and the Most High work. Call me back, truth, justice, and right.
Okay. Next question in Garvey's view. What does it mean to give to God? And what are examples of not giving to God? What does it mean to give to God, according to Mr. Garvey? I'll look in the text as well.
All right, so I was reading this. This is cute. He said, "Never give your money away outside of your race. If you are called upon to give it to God, ask yourself if God is really going to get it."
Mm-hmm. Okay, he continues. Let's see. Thank you, Sister Ket. Never give your money outside of your race. If you are called upon to give it to God, ask yourself if God is really going to get it. Sorry. Only when you feel that it is going into a channel. Here it is. Only when you feel that it is going to a channel. Why isn't it highlighted? Can't highlight that. All right. Okay. Only when you feel it is going into a channel that God will really appreciate. That God will really appreciate Himself should you give it. Because God Himself doesn't want money, but a good cause in His name may need it. And you should first find out if there's really a cause. So it's not saying don't give to religious causes, charitable causes, but we got to look deeper. We can't just walk up and say with whatever Church of Christ or whatever, and you need funds, we have to investigate a little bit further. Where's your church at? Who's your pastor? How long have y'all, been a church? What denomination do y'all, preach? What type of work do you do in the community? So we have to further investigate and make sure that these funds that are being requested are really going to the cause that's being requested. Because as Mr. Garvey says, God himself doesn't want money. So be careful of that. Not giving to God, example of not giving to God, Mr. Garvey says, to send a man touring around the world in the name of God for his own pleasure is not giving to God. To give a man more worldly goods than he already has is not giving to God. To give help, carry on social work in the community, or help the poor of the community, or to rescue the children of the community is giving to God. So there is work out there, legitimate community work, legitimate charity work, but we have that obligation to make sure it's legitimate. Questions or comments on that? Yes. A lot of, we know how religion has been misused and misappropriated. So we can't continue to contribute to that. Okay, that is giving to God. Next question, what does Mr. Garvey say about buying a new suit? And I think we talked about this. I feel like we talked about this in an earlier lesson as well. Economy, making sure we have a reserve. What does Mr. Garvey say about buying a new suit? Had a little story in there about us, or a mini lesson about purchasing things.
If the old one is good, you don't need a new one.
Absolutely. So, again, we're responsible for the community's funds. And we can't just be buying, spending money just to spend money. If we can, purchase something reasonable, fix it up, maintain it properly, that's good enough to get us to the next stage. So whether that's a suit, home, a meeting place, a vehicle, take care of the things that we have. Let's not just buy things to buy them. That money can be, we should be thinking about nation building at this point, and how those funds can be used for nation building, and not just making our closets, having more stuff in the closet. So, if there is a financial concern, and we can't afford, the several suits, we should take care of the suit that we have. Mr. Garvey says, taking care of the one suit and being clean and presentable in that one suit is better than having several suits, but not, necessarily being having hygiene or being presentable. But yeah, we're not wasting our money on a bunch of clothes. If nothing is wrong with the suit of clothes, don't buy a new one. All it may need is attention, and so with everything. You may badly need money later. When trouble comes, you can run with your money, but you may not be able to carry all the things. So let's save our money. Let's patch up our clothes, keep our clothes clean. You know, let's not over exhaust our clothes and things like that. Like, don't be cutting grass and good stuff. All right. 13. If we have ambitions to be great, but we don't have the means to immediately do so, what does Mr. Garvey recommend that we practice? So if we want to be great, we want to have nice things, but we currently don't have the means to act that out. What does Mr. Garvey recommend that we practice?
Rigid thrift.
Rigid thrift, absolutely.
I wanted to say that for a reason. But I was going to design a T-shirt for some of the members that had on their for the 100th anniversary of the UNIA. It was going to have on their keeping it 100%, 100% Garveyite. It's going to have a picture of the Garvey $100 bill, and on the back of it was going to be that message there about not having the means, but wanting to acquire it. You can acquire it through rigid thrift. I love that quote. Anyway, that's one of my favorites.
Yes, that and again, this is from an organizational standpoint, but also personal. This has helped me over the years to become, not to say that I'm financially secure or anything like that, but to to not be in a worse situation at least. We know who we are. We know our financial situation. We know what we can and cannot afford. We must have the discipline and exercise that discipline to maintain our finances. So we will have to forego some of the things that we want or delay the acquisition of some of the things that we want. But again, from a nation builder mindset, we've really got to rethink what we can be doing with our funds. $100 may not be much, for us as an individual, but if 100 of us can come together, contribute $100, and that's something we can really do something with. And that's kind of how we want to train ourselves to be thinking. Questions, comments so far? Rigid thrift. Rigid thrift, by saving as much as you can so that you'll be able to change your position to reach your objective. But yeah, if we can't get there yet, save and keep that goal in mind. We will get there eventually. Okay. In order to make profit in a business, what must we do before we get into that business? Or what does Mr. Garvey recommend that we do before we get into a business if we want to make profit?
You got to know that business before you get into it.
What's that?
You got to know that business before you get into it.
Absolutely know that business. Is that the only thing? Is it just know the business? Yep. Yeah. Okay. Know your business. Never get into any business that you know nothing about. The example that came to my mind when we were going over this is the Black Star Line and the Negro World newspaper. Negro World was Mr. Garvey's wheelhouse. He had been a printer's apprentice since the age of 14, to my understanding. So, what is it? African Times and Orient Review when he was in England. And also, as a printer's apprentice, that was in Jamaica. I can't remember the company. I don't know if that's ever been. Well, I don't have that. But the point is, the Negro World was extremely successful, and very little issues, historically that we're aware of from Mr. Garvey's publications, the Black Man magazine, later on, and so forth. However, when you contrast that with the Black Star Line, which was not necessarily Mr. Garvey's wheelhouse, that was an endeavor in which he relied heavily upon the expertise of others. But when we look at, I don't want to say failure, but the success and the challenges of these two endeavors. One, Mr. Garvey had significantly more knowledge in. The other, he was, ambitious, but again, in that mindset of nation building, he knew that this was a area that we needed to develop expertise. So that's just one thing to think about in regards to, or one thing that came to my mind when we think about Mr. Garvey saying lessons that he learned in hindsight. I think this comparison is one of those things that lends to this question and knowledge of the business. Any questions or comments before we proceed? But we should know our business. So if we want to go into whatever business it is, I think, we've talked recently real estate, we've talked stocks. What else have we've talked? I feel like we've talked about so many things. But if we really want to get serious about any of those particular things, I think Mama Mina has mentioned like a coffee shop and things like that. We really have to develop an expertise in that business. It can't just be we think it's a good idea. We think it's something that the community wants. We have to develop skills in that area. Okay. Question 15, and then we got one more slide. What is the difference between profit of a business and the capital of a business? And I don't think this is in the book. I think I pulled this out of the book because Mr. Garvey was talking about profit and capital. Does anybody know?
The profit is what's left over after all the expenses are paid.
Absolutely. There you go.
And then the capital is going to be things like your operating expense and things to maneuver, funds that you have to maneuver during emergencies, things of that nature, like your reserves.
Well, capital, the way I understood it was capital is the money. You said it very well. Capital, I would say capital is the money you put in to keep the business running. But yeah, profit, as you said, after the revenue comes in, and all of your expenses are paid out, that's your profit. Capital is defined as the initial sum invested, money used to make more money, and profit is the total revenue minus the total investment or investment and expense. Okay, so yeah, want to distinguish the difference between capital and profit, and I think that leads us into our next question. Why must we live on the profit of a business and not the capital of the business? As organizers, as business leaders, anybody that's starting a business, you can take this lesson and apply what Mr. Garvey's saying. But why must we live on the profit of a business and not the capital of the business? This goes back to
Is that again not exhausting yourself?
Absolutely.
Because because you got the capital in there, and then you have the profit, and then you living off the with the profit, but then you don't want to run out. You don't want to live too much off the profit as well. So I guess it's kind of a way of keep on making sure that your business is actually making some type of revenue.
Yeah, well, I would say profit specifically. You want to make sure your business is continuously profitable, and you have funds to pull from the profits if needed. But then you also have funds to pull from the profits to put back into saving. But if you start to get to the point where you're using your capital, again, capital is the money that you initially put in to make more money. So you can get to the point where you don't have enough capital to redo the process. Mr. Garvey says the time may come where you have to live on the capital because you made no profit for that period. Sister Aquette, you were going to say something.
I was gonna say,
Diane.
if you don't have enough capital too, sometimes you may not be able to take advantage of certain opportunities.
Very true. Very true. But yeah, your capital is it's like your monthly expenses. You need to, it's going to cost you $10,000 every month just to keep the doors open and have the lights on. So if you start to dip into that $10,000, now you can't open the doors for the following months. So you have to make sure you keep that amount protected and secure, and yeah, we don't touch it. But that's a very important concept as well, because once you do know what that number is and you can consistently reproduce that number, I would argue that's the foundations of a successful long-term business is, making sure your capital is always, or the needed capital is always there. How does Mr. Garvey recommend we keep a good relationship with the government? And why is it important to keep a good relationship with the government? So how, first, does Mr. Garvey recommend we keep a good relationship with the government?
I think it's got something to do with always, what does it say? Don't do anything that's not in keeping with the law.
Yes, that is that's in the aspect of not getting on the government's bad side. But Mr. Garvey is promoting a way to get on the government's good side, a proactive approach. How does Mr. Garvey recommend we keep a good relationship?
Don't
get in any trouble,
counteract any bad statements anybody's made about your organization.
Right.
Yes, but I thought it was.
Well, it says right here, don't ever get charged with a crime. Don't get in other people's, battles. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then also he says, also try for us to settle racial disputes without going to the law. So basically, he's telling you to stay in your lane.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see. I'm in the book. Court. What? Hold on.
Don't join any movement that the government is not favorably inclined to tolerate.
One second. Let me check the answer really quick. Okay, now y'all are right. Counteract statements. Don't join any movements. Government. Okay, you all are correct. So let me see.
Then it also says when you do good work, always share it.
Yeah.
Let your good work be known.
Yes, that's what I was looking for, but I think that's that's probably one of the last questions. Why is it important to keep a good relationship with the government? This was straightforward. We should be able to spit this one out easily. We are behind enemy lines, basically. Why should we keep a good relationship with this government? Very important.
Because the government can outlaw your operation,
Absolutely.
your organization.
Absolutely. Very straightforward. They can shut us down. We are, like I said, we are behind enemy lines. And that's why we must practice diplomacy, promote our good work, make sure our name as an organization is protected in media and propaganda, because we can easily be outlawed. One thing, I pride about the UNIA in its long history, to my knowledge, the organization has never been considered, on any type of defamation list or any hate group or anything like that. We had our legal challenges based on mail fraud, but there's never been any accusation of the UNIA. I'm trying to think of the right way of saying this. Uh, as they would consider like yeah, I guess hate group or terror group, I think is the best way to say it in modern time. We've never had that title put on us as an organization from the U.S. government.
But does that really matter when the government still did things to try to tear the UNIA down? They may not have said we're some sort of subversive organization or something.
Correct.
They were very scared of Black people talking about being self-sufficient and separating and mobilizing Black people. And so I guess my point is that, even however you try to act to play it safe, you can't really control what somebody thinks of you or is going to want to do to you. And so, the government may not have said UNIA was outlawed, but they still tried to tear it down.
Yes, but my point is in regards to legal justification for the government to have any acts towards us or prevent any acts that we are trying to do. A good example of modern day, anti-Semitic. Some of our organizations have been considered anti-Semitic, and with that, it prevents them from being able to exercise certain levels of propaganda. We don't have that obstacle. Is where I'm going.
I get the example, but I mean, the groups that get called anti-Semitic ain't being anti-Semitic. They just told the truth. And the powerful Jews didn't like it. So they came at them, canceled them, as they call it.
Exactly. But the UNIA has never been canceled, is what I'm trying to say. We've never openly, done anything that can be pointed to say, this is a subversive organization.
What comes to mind, we're according to the government, the Black supremacists and the separatists. We don't want to join in the big tent. With everybody, no prejudice against anyone. We're the separatists, race separatists, for the Blacks, and Black supremacists, I would say, race first.
Yes.
And by organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is run by a Jewish man.
Mm-hmm.
If you are Black nationalist, then they label you as a hate group, just like they do to the NOI. Although none of us have ever done no hate against each other, but because we say we love ourselves, they call us a hate group.
Are we on any list? Is the UNI on any list as deemed a hate group?
Well, one of the things, as Black people, no one can call us anti-Semitic at all, because the original Jews, and first of all, Semitic, that's a wrong word. That's the Europeans use that word, Semitic. But us as brothers and sisters, we are the original Jews. But on a list, I mean, every organization out here that has Black brothers and sisters is on the list. Trust. The UNIA is on the list. The Black Panther Party is on the list. The new Black Panther Party on the list. Anybody that wants to separate themselves from this government, and then they turn around and try to call you a terrorist as well, because you want to be separate. They can label you as a terrorist. But as brothers and sisters, all of us is on the list. Because and that's just the way it is. That's how the history it is. Anytime anybody goes against the norm or whatever their ideas is on the list.
I got you. I'm just looking for documentation. I do have Southern Poverty Law Center. I have their website up for the state of Georgia.
I'm looking at it too.
You have some groups are on here. I'm not saying that we agree, but some groups are listed here that we may know. Nation of Islam is here. Anti-Semitism, Atlanta. Proud Boys. Let's see what else.
Let me say something whenever you get a chance.
And how in the world they gonna put Nation of Islam on the same list and the Morriside Temple of America on the same list as the Proud Boys? That's crazy right there. That list needs to be burnt up.
Okay, but Moorish Science Temple, I did not see Universal Negro Improvement Association included in these groups, and that's what I'm trying to say. We've never crossed any line, any legal, boundary from that standpoint to be deemed with other groups such as whatever they deem as a hate group.
Well,
but were we ever listed as one back in the time when Marcus Garvey was alive and the UNIA was at its high point or its heyday?
Not to my note.
Under J. Edgar Hoover, everybody was on the list. Dr. King was on the list, Prince of Peace. So
exactly.
That wouldn't matter for me. But I was going to say too that there was a point where I'm not going to say who got the UNIA temporarily put on the terrorist watch list, but for a temporary period of time, we were, because of some fools that I know in the organization about 15 to 20 years ago, running their mouth a certain kind of way. They did jeopardize us as far as going to airports and all that kind of stuff. Certain people who were known members. But I'm not going to get into that now. But the point being that he was particularly, I guess, talking about the government more than the Anti-Defamation League.
Thank you for that. Good point.
But also I was going to say, the point I think that Mr. Garvey was trying to make is, if you're in the woods, you might not be afraid because there are bears and there are other dangerous animals around, but don't go poke the bear.
Exactly.
So I know they're gonna, eat you if they see you. They're gonna be this and that and the other, but there's no reason to go provoking stuff if you don't have to. We're not a revolutionary kind of overthrow government type organization like some of the militant ones in back in our day. Our mission was to establish a super state in Africa to be strong enough to lend us support, still be organized and prepared to defend ourselves, but not go around trying to, topple people's government, to give them more justification to make certain actions against us and possibly even win over some of our own people. But ours was just a different mission, so he wanted to point that out. Don't poke the bear.
Yes, yeah. That's why I wanted to preface it. We're behind enemy lines. We know that this government, this society, is not necessarily in line with our ideals. So let's not make things more difficult for ourselves and for our people. Let's work diplomatically. Any other comments, questions on the relationship with the government? Because the government can easily outlaw your organization and curtail or prevent your activities. Never let the government put you on the defensive. It will create prejudice against you. So, again, we haven't to my knowledge, in recent time, crossed that boundary and allowed that label to be applied to us. All right, 3 more questions. Why does Garvey?
I just want to say something. I don't like the fact that that list that they have there, and I need to check. If you could put that website in the chat, because I want to check other states. I don't like the fact that they have our Black organizations on the same list as organizations that is affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan. And they know those some of those organizations you got are affiliated with the KKK.
Because in their opinion, the white supremacy, white privilege, white fragility, they think if you don't want to be in association with them and include them in your organization, and you have race pride, white folks call that hate.
Yeah, definitely agree with all those. But I'll say this, because I've dealt with that subject a long time. And in the end, naturally, everything y'all say, even Malcolm, Mr. Garvey, all of them talk about how sensitive the Jews are to everybody else, but they want to talk about everybody, but don't want nobody talking about them. Cry crocodile tears every time you sneeze. They swear you saying, "Achoo! He said a Jew! He said a Jew!" And they go crazy. And so if you don't like their list for the Anti-Defamation League, then we need to start an Anti-Kemetic League. And for those who who deal with anti-Kemetism or anti-blackness, we put them on the damn list and make it get respected. Maybe they'll be a little more careful because they'll be the first one to go on the list for being anti-us. So no one really cares about what they think. It does affect us, but we'll never get off of any of their lists if we say anything that jeopardizes their hegemony over Hollywood, over the music industry, over law. These folks, so-called Jews, run everything. So the moment you mention anything about it, you're going on the list. And if you go complain, sister, you're gonna be the first one at the top of the list. Not that you really care, but just letting you know. So it's anti-Semitic to be anti-Semitic, or to be, whatever. So anyway, just we got to be mindful because again, we don't go, starting stuff that don't need to be. But that don't mean that we're paranoid and petrified about possibly offending anybody. So just we don't start none. We ain't got to worry. That's less of a fight. We got to worry about. We pick our battles. But anyway, that's all. I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Brother Morima. But yeah, don't poke the bear. We behind enemy lines. We know that they are, they don't want us to succeed. So let's not give them any additional justification to become an obstacle. Why does Garvey say that we should settle our disputes without going to the law? How does Mr. Garvey recommend us to settle our disputes outside of?
Because it's expensive.
What else is it? It's
expensive
and uncertain. Absolutely. Law is expensive and uncertain. I see you, Dr. Kuda. You establish a bad record. You can easily be searched in the court records. It also causes the government to think badly of the race. So several reasons for us to avoid the United States legal system. We should be establishing our own legal process in the UNIA through our Constitution and through our High Council. We shouldn't be dependent on anybody else to settle our disputes. It's expensive, it's unsure, it's uncertain, and it makes us look bad. It makes the race look bad. Any questions or comments on that? Avoiding.
That's right. I agree with that 100%. We should settle our own disputes inside house.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. All right.
I will say this one thing, if I can. Of course, we all agree with that, but it comes a point where that's easier said than done.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when it comes to us going to war over certain things internally. And then, some people feeling, disrespected, left out of certain things and blah, blah, blah. And then threats and accusation, all kinds of stuff come in and either the police get involved or, lawsuits and all this other stuff coming through. We want everybody to respect the Constitution and the process and our judicial rulings and all that internally. But
Yep.
sometimes it's not as simple and easy as it sounds. But yeah.
I understand what you're saying, Brother Moyman. I know. My interpretation would be it's two things that we really, really have to, I feel personally, that we really have to understand as leadership in the UNIA. One is the Constitution, and two, I feel the course of African philosophy is the spiritual guide for the Constitution. And if we, are dealing with individuals that are in a positions of authority or power that don't value those two documents, then I understand what you're saying. It causes us to um, go outside of the organization.
So by racial disputes, he means internally Black people with Black people. He doesn't mean racial disputes like discrimination or something involving another race. He's talking about internally.
Yes, this is internal. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Well, I'm thinking, yeah, he says the courts or whatever, and how in any capacity, how uncertain it is, and expensive as it is, that it applies to, I'm thinking in all aspects.
Yeah. Thank you, Counsel General. I understand that. Yeah, I see what you mean. Any other questions on going to the law for legal or to settle disputes? Okay, last two questions, then we'll go into our reading for lesson 11. What type of things, and this is the one I thought we were reading for 17, what type of things should we make the government aware of? Why should the government know us? What should we be known for? That's all one question. What type of things? Dr. Kuda's got some. Dr. Kuda, we hadn't heard from you today.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Greetings.
Greetings. We should learn like as public education, we should tend towards good citizenship.
Yes.
So we should do things like social service work, charitable work, educational work. We should be seen as good citizens.
Absolutely. Let me go to the book on that one. I like that question. Again, this is going to, what we do on a regular basis, and what we promote on a regular basis. And we should also remember from the preamble, the Universal Negro Improvement Association is a social, friendly, humanitarian, charitable, educational, constructive, institutional, constructive, and expansive society. But the social, the humanitarian, I think is where Mr. Garvey is, and charitable, obviously, is what we should be promoting. Those works, those programs, and that's why we talk a lot about those programs, our education programs, our charity programs, our outreach programs. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing. I think I am. Yes. Always keep your good work before the government and make the government aware of it. So our good work, particularly social service work, charitable work, educational work. And we're not going to go too far because I think that's one of my following questions. But we should not only be doing charitable social work, humanitarian work, but we should also be promoting that. And that's where for us, social media is one way of doing it, but we should also develop direct relationships with our government. As we learn in lesson 2, leadership, as well as lesson 8, the social system, we should have a relationship with the those that are in power in our community, including those in government. So, um, we should be communicating with them. Hey, we have a charitable program coming up. Hey, we just did this youth program for the children. This summer, we've got these programs coming up. But that information should always be known to the government. Our social charitable work. Any questions or comments on that, Dr. Kuda?
I just want to know, are we speaking of the United States government or the UNIA government?
This is the United States government.
Okay, because it's a little bit contradictory because there's certain things that we propose to do and some sentiments that I do sense when we are sharing certain things. It's like we don't want to go that route. We don't want to be seen as okay, this one might what do you call it? Uh, like for instance, I was speaking with the Minister of Education, Brother Oster, and I spoke about the United Nations, and he was like, that is not the route that the UNIA wants to be seen making relationships with. So, and the United Nations is under the USA government, supported by the USA government.
Slow down. He's saying that the UNIA is not trying to develop a relationship with the United Nations
Yeah,
at all.
that was the response I got from the Minister of Education. It was like, that is not the direction that the UNIA wants to go, and to the extent that, I feel a little bit uncomfortable as much as we are for ourselves first, but we can't work in isolation.
Yes.
We have these, other nations in the world, and somewhere, somehow, we're going to encounter and have to knock on some doors.
Yes.
For instance, when you want to register this organization, you have to go through the system of the United States government.
Yes.
So we can't say we don't want to work for those because it's still 90% of the things we still need to do through, the existing government that we find ourselves a government in a government.
Yes. I had to talk with Brother Oster and get his full understanding. I'm going to argue that there was a misunderstanding. He misunderstood you. I know that when we look at the Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World, we do declare that we declared the League of Nations null and void at the time when the Declaration of Rights was created. However, there is still a history of the UNIA working to establish a relationship with, I think it was still the League of Nations at that time, where we actually had sent a delegate. We talked about this in Race First. We sent a delegate one year that was accepted. The following year, they were not accepted. But at the end of the day, we have to have relationships with these other nations, these other groups. As you said, we don't live in isolation. We have a flag, the red, black, and green flag, and that represents something not only to us but to other people. And this is what this is speaking to. It's establishing the reputation of the red, black, and green flag. So when people see the red, black, and green flag, it's associated with, oh, those are the people that do social work. Those are the people that do charitable education work and develop the community. So, you know, I don't understand that mentality of not having relationships with others. If we don't want to have relationships with others, we shouldn't even have a flag. Because what is the flag for? The flag is for recognition and people to know who we are when they see us. And how are they going to know that unless we have these relationships and you know do what Mr. Garvey's saying do. So
I think what he might have meant was not being reliant upon the United Nations
and
versus relationship.
and
Um,
and I can see that also from a recognition standpoint. We don't rely on that recognition either. But go ahead,
yeah,
brother.
yeah, but yeah, I agree. Certainly, you gotta have a relationship. I mean, yeah, we did have a relationship with the League of Nations and the United Nations. Even Cheryl went back to the United Nations or to the United Nations at this opening conference in San Francisco. So
Yeah,
yeah, to be contradictory against our history and precedent.
right.
That's we don't need. Yeah, hold on one second. Oh, anyway, that's pretty much my comment.
Yeah, I don't understand how we plan to be an independent nation, independent government, but we don't want anyone to know who we are or what we do. That doesn't, I don't know, that doesn't seem to bode well.
Yeah, that gets me very confused. It's like we don't want to be known,
Mm,
and we are afraid to approach some of these structures. But now, from what we read here, Garvey actually encourages us to keep good citizenship and speak to government
yes,
members. Like in the lesson where we learned about you should know the mayor in your area, you should know all that hierarchy levels and communicate with them.
yes,
So if we want to do certain things, we also get the endorsement.
yes, yep, yes. See,
Um,
Brother Mace's had his hand up.
Race first, family. I think race first. I apologize. I had another meeting prior to this one. But to this point, I think it's important for us as leaders to understand that a lot of our people are focused on this act of governing ourselves as a revolutionary act and not a right.
Mm,
I think Garvey wanted us to understand that this is a right. We're not in revolution. When we're in revolution, oftentimes there's an energy that has been put behind revolution where it's like we it's a fear of people knowing what we're doing because they're gonna shut us down or they're gonna try to do this, they're gonna, through Black Wall Street and all the other times and accounts where they've tried to shut down revolutions.
yes, sir.
But I think the Garvey doesn't want us to think of ourselves as it that way. He wants us to think of this as a divine right for us to be able to govern ourselves and build for ourselves, and us to operate in that energy. And therefore, we want people to know that we're taking up that right, and that we have a plan to do that right. And you can see the proof of us doing that, of us taking care of our people.
Yes, sir. Well, very well said, First Vice President. Divine right. Brother Cornelius, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to just say a few things. I was thinking about that, and Dr. Cooter mentioned some of it that in an earlier chapter. He talked about us, knowing our government on the local level and
Yes, sir.
important people in the community. So I was wondering if government meant federal government as well as local government. And then the other thing I was thinking about, if you read a little bit further in that paragraph, where it talks about this does not mean racial education. So I was wondering if that's what the Minister of Education meant by not involving the government. We don't want to tell him about the racial teaching we're doing. But then also the other question I had too was that I was wondering, in light of what we were talking about before, how they sometimes label organizations like ours as a hate group.
Mm-hmm.
How could we really establish a relationship with the government because I would be afraid if you approach some of these government officials who are all involved in the mainstream and stuff, and you tell them, well, we're UNIA and we're all about Black independence, they would get scared and say, oh, we can't deal with you because they would consider us a racist organization. So I would wonder, how could we develop a relationship with the government, being that they would probably take a negative opinion?
Let me
Brother John, I just want to say these lessons you've been taking us through, these are the tools for us to deal with
exactly.
it.
Thank you, Dr. Kuda.
All that's what I've been learning throughout in this message to the people. It equips me to know my level of how I can interact with these people.
Right. Yes.
And I should never get, I mean, the message is loud and clear in these lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I should never get derailed. I should never get greedy and sell out the organization. And it's clear in some of the lessons here, we learned that we got nothing against white people.
Exactly.
We're just trying to uplift ourselves because we've been down there for many years.
Yes.
So we just want to bring our people out of poverty. We don't want handouts. We want to do for ourselves. Just help us to be able to do for ourselves.
Yes.
It's all in these lessons. Diplomacy, everything is here. So if I am going to go and speak to these people, you can't just go without having equipped yourself with the armor of God, which we have right here.
Yes.
You know, we even have a lesson on Christ, the lesson on God. All those things equip us. So when you do go out there, and it's good not to go in single file, but go in pairs.
Yes.
When you have meetings with these people, you go in pairs and not be like one of these Ghanaian presidents who was selling out his neighboring country to the United States, saying these people are doing this and that. It's because they're at that level and they're so corrupt at that level. And because they are so corrupt, they do certain things to cover their corruption. So how would I go and squeal on UNIA Philadelphia and go to the mother body and say UNIA Philadelphia is friends with Detroit, and things like that with the UNIA Detroit. That's what happened with the Ghana situation. So at that level, it's because they don't have any gatekeepers, the presidents of our African countries. And it's said there are no people who they are accounting to they do things that suits just them. They are in those positions. Oh my God, I'm getting a little bit, yeah. So, but for us here in the UNIA, I am glad, I'm so happy to be here because there's all these teachings we get, especially this message to the people.
Yes, ma'am.
Race first,
Race first.
the orientation. All these make us strong people mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and they polish us up so that when we stand in front of these people, whether it's government, whether it's the United Nations, or whether it's an African government, because what Brother Oster was encouraging is that they want ties with African governments. I said, that's not a problem. I can make you be in touch with the president in Zimbabwe, president in South Africa, But you find that those people, those African nations are also maybe waiting for kind of a support from the US. When they hear United States, they think we're coming with money from America to Africa.
Yeah.
It's only few presidents who are not corrupt who can receive you wholeheartedly and still have a budget for African Americans without looking at you as you coming from a money dollar country. Because the dollar is very powerful all over the world. So when you mention just the word America, they see money.
Thank you, Dr. Kuda. Brother Cornelius, I haven't forgot your question. I'm going to elaborate. I think Dr. Kuda touched on some of my response as well. Attorney Imhotep had his hand up. Attorney Imhotep? Okay, he dropped off. But yes, how do we approach them? What are we expecting in these discussions? As Dr. Kuda said, we got to be equipped with the message to the people. Diplomacy, particularly, we must understand um, who we're talking to, and we'll get to that tonight in the lesson 11 titled "Man" and what to expect from these individuals that we're talking to, but also understanding the community that we represent, and speaking in such a way that we get the best for our community. One thing that we haven't necessarily touched on yet, it's a later lesson: propaganda. And I think this is what Mr. Garvey's speaking to here on question 19. We must have a propaganda campaign that supports um, the representation of our leadership. And what that means is we got to have that grassroots work being done in the community so that the community also can speak on our behalf.
Right.
The community can say, yeah, the I don't know, they may not know UNIA, but they know that Red, Black, and Green organization is always cleaning up the community. They're always giving to the homeless. They're always having programs for the youth, and that we take that political power with us when we go to have these discussions with government officials.
That's right.
We're not just a group of individuals that have a certain level of desires. We are representatives of the same population that elected these individuals into their positions. And if we have that same influence and we bring that influence into these diplomatic discussions, that is how I would approach them. But one thing I would say in regards to, like, I think we mentioned like hate groups and things like that, and the UNIA being considered a hate group, which it has, again, to my knowledge, the UNIA has never had that title or label, has never been labeled as a hate group. But the example that Mr. Garvey gives us for the UNIA is the Jewish culture. And the Jewish culture, we can, battle back and forth as to what we consider it. But at the end of the day, they are doing what's best for their people. And they have no shame in stating that and making that known. And we as the UNIA are doing the exact same thing. But instead of it being for this religion or culture, we're doing it for the family of Africans, and that's the only difference. So if the Jewish culture and Jewish tradition is not considered a hate group, why would the UNIA be considered a hate group? That would be
Can I answer that,
brother. Yeah, go ahead, brother Macy's.
I just want to add to, I guess, practicality of that conversation as we do go into these places.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, as a revolutionary, I'm going to talk about what you are not doing for my people.
Mm-hmm.
But as a person who's walking in with my divine right, I'm going there telling you what I'm doing for my people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share with you on that. So as leaders, we have to really get out of the conversation of even expecting or having a conversation about what another group is not doing. That can be a focus, but our focus, I believe, if it turns and we really focus on our right and our duty to provide improvement of the lives of our people, and I think that we're gonna walk in that energy, and people are gonna see that energy because we, like he said, with propaganda, we have to create our own narratives. We have to tell our own story. So if the story is this is what I'm doing, and we're focused on that every day, our life will walk in that story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And part of, we got to understand as that nation building mindset, part of governance is making sure your population is taken care of. So we got to really, let's be serious. Let's be honest. If we were the leaders of a region, a state, and there was a particular group that we may not agree with their principles, but they're not hurting anybody else, and they are doing what's best for their people and benefiting their local community. As a leader of a region, I would say that's one less thing that I have to worry about. And that's part of what Garvey promotes for us to bring into these discussions is this is less work, that the government has to do. This is less funds that you have to put out. These are less resources that you have to put out because we are doing that work for them. So that should be perceived as a benefit.
I'm sorry, backing off what you said, but it's really literal because the reasons nonprofits are tax exempt is because they're stated to leave the burden of the state. They're relieving burdens for the state, so it's literal. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Last question, which we kind of already touched on a little bit.
You got two hands up, President John. There's two people with their hands up.
Apologies. Thank you, Dr. Kuda. I'm rushing. Brother Sister Aquette first. My apologies.
Okay, what? I just asked him a question. How does Marcus Garvey feel about his members actually getting into politics? Because I know there's offices and everything in the UNIA, but then you say, how do you get good in with the government, right? But then you turn around and if brothers and sisters, run for mayor or city council or something like that in their community, how is that? Is that okay?
Well,
I like that one.
Furthermore, I'm gonna call you to help me with that. But you had two questions. One was, what was Mr. Garvey's opinion, and the second one was, is that okay? And I would correlate that to modern time. Currently, we have to have some discussions. There's been some sentiment that there should be a complete separation between the UNIA and between members or especially leaders in the UNIA and United States politics, such that we even have a one leader that had run for office, and that actually became an issue of discussion. It hasn't been finalized as to what the decision is or direction will be. And to Mr. Garvey, Brother Morimal, if you could help me on that one. I'm not sure if there was. I don't have any history to Mr. Garvey's opinion on that.
Oh yeah, for electoral politics, absolutely. Well, politics in general, the UNIA was very, very always involved in.
Are we talking about? But are we talking about like members of leadership running for office, running in politics?
Well, it wasn't necessarily. I wouldn't say a leader of a division per se, but one time in 1924 we established the Universal Negro Political Union. Now this was not legally affiliated because we do have friendly societies like Friends of the UNIA, things like that aren't legally attached to us, but because we are a nonprofit, we couldn't actually do certain things politically. So we had this kind of a separate, but also it was governed by a former congressman at the time. I forgot his name now. Aaron Prelo from out of South Carolina. Anyway, he was a national political director, and then later Mr. Sherrill and the others. But anyway, it was tons of politicians like the Diggs out in Detroit. Many in Detroit. Even Mr. Sherrill's son was elected the first sheriff. Et cetera. Sherrill and Cragen and all them ran different political campaigns, and Mr. Garvey himself was very close with the guy who represented Harlem, which was a white guy named Royal Weller. Every time Mr. Garvey came to D.C., that's why he had to set up a black house. He came to D.C. so often and met at the people in the Congress, and every time he came out to speak, senators and Congress people from the United States would come hear him speak. In Washington, packed the audience to capacity, thousands of people pouring out. So in fact, the UNIA sent delegations to Coolidge on at least 3 or 4 occasions that I know of, where they met with him and had to discuss some things that was going on. So we weren't never afraid of no politics. I mean, we have a vote, so you got to vote. If you pay taxes, you have a right to vote. And if you got to vote in certain areas where we congregate in numbers, we ought to have some kind of say over what happens, just as the Mormons have some say what happens in Utah, or other political, people in different areas where they are in numbers. When we are in numbers in certain black communities, yeah, we better have some say, or we a bunch of chumps, So yeah, there was nothing wrong. And of course, Mr. Garvey formed the first black or first political party, period, in Jamaica, the People's Political Party, et cetera. And the Universal Negro Political Union actually, long before AAPRP that Nkrumah and them had set up, the UNPU, or the Universal Negro Political Union, was meant to be a worldwide African political party. So anyway, these institutions, we just don't practice today. But like, Brother Macias was talking about, many of us come into the movement with a anti-government, radical, revolutionary kind of mindset. So we don't imagine that, we can actually have some influence over government, because that's the devil and that. But we one's paying for the devil. We financing these wars. We financing all the things, as well as the public service in our community, the police, the fire department, everything else, the roads and bridges. So if you're gonna give them all your money and then have no influence on what happens to it, you got to be a chump. Somebody ought to go in your pocket, So, but yeah, we ought to have some say. But that don't mean that politics and electoral politics is a panacea that's going to cure all our problems.
Yes.
But we just saying, for wherever we are in numbers, have some influence. And if you don't have enough to be the majority, you still can, have a strong impact. If you got 20-30% of the vote, and white folks are evenly split, you got some political say. So you get what you can out of those regions. But that's Mr. Garvey's take. He's not afraid of no politics.
Yeah, I definitely know he encouraged political influence through organization. We got two other hands. Council General Attorney Imhotep.
Yes, thank you. Two things. One, I do not know what our policy is with regards to the United Nations. But I did hear something recently that led me to believe it is was hands off position, and I'm looking forward to learning exactly what our position is. I'm assured that it is one of a race first position, and I'm thinking we just need to know, once we learn, we got to know. We don't know, and once we learn what it is, I think we'll be able to appreciate it more. Two, the sister who used to be the AU representative to the United Nations, I can't recall her name.
Ericana Chimboy-Kwa.
Thank you. Is one of the persons who is expressing the view that I'm thinking all African countries should get ready to leave the United Nations. The reason being, it's the Security Council. They want to add a couple of seats to to African to the African continent. 2 seats, at least 2 seats to vote on the Security Council. But the Americans who really run the United Nations, they're okay with that, but they do not want to give the African nations the veto power, the veto vote. They won't. Okay, they'll let you on, but no veto power, as all the other countries have who are on the Security Council. And considering the Africans are over 1 billion people in the world, the thinking is, thank you. If we don't get the veto power, it's one thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
And the United Nations don't do anything for us anyway. We need to get leave this whatever it is. Thank you. Goodbye. So that's it, and I think that would be justified. So thank you, Race First.
Thank you, Council General. So yeah, we have to do some homework on the recent relationship with the United Nations. Brother Cornelius.
Yeah, just one quick thing. Speaking of relation with government, that I just remember a year or two back at Garvey at the Marcus Garvey celebration, we had Mayor Khalid, I don't remember his whole name, of City of South Fulton.
Yes.
And that was kind of like a relation with government, because I know that he is very openly and very proudly talks about how City of South Fulton is a Black city.
Yes.
But then I wonder, by the same context, I wonder if any of these current Black mayors of the city of Atlanta would have spoke at the Garvey Festival. That's all I wanted to say. Race first.
I got you. I understand what you're saying. I would say it's on us to develop that relationship, and then, present the opportunity. Right now, I don't think we have, not that I'm aware of, that type of relationship with Mayor Andre Dickens. He's a little less accessible than Mayor Khalid.
Well, he's more pleased the mainstream too.
Yeah. Attorney Motep, you still got your hand up. Everything good? That's old hand.
Yes, everything's good. I'm trying to take it down here.
Last question, and we still got reading. And tonight is a very important reading. I do hope everyone can stay for the reading. If not, I understand. Last question: what information does Garvey say that we should keep, quote, private, like the Jews? Got two hands. It's probably Dr. Kuda. What you got, Dr. Kuda? And the brother Cornelius did.
You mentioned it when we were speaking.
Yep.
That the Jews keep theirs, to themselves. So same with us. Our racial education is for ourselves. It's not just to be parading out there to show other people that we teach racial education, because the Jews don't do it. They don't go out there showing that they teach the Torah only and so on.
Exactly.
So yeah, racial education.
Yep, racial education, and that is our cultural education as well. Had a discussion with a brother. Well, any questions or comments any questions or comments on that? We should keep our racial education private. Mr. Garvey says, let's go to the text, because I think this is where he talks about the dual education.
Let me ask you a question. When brothers and sisters are out there speaking at an event, I mean, isn't what's being spoken also has to do with education, or is he speaking something specific when it comes to racial education? I know that the Jews do talk about that Kabbalah a lot, and they get out there. Well, I know they do in DC. Well, when it's time for Hanukkah, they out there in the community talking whatever. So is Marcus Garvey saying something specific? Because when you having events, just like the brother said, revolutionary events, I mean, that's what the brothers and sisters is talking about. It's education.
Yes.
And awareness.
Yes, but we're going beyond events and going into a curriculum. So we can't, history, as Mr. Garvey says, we must study history incessantly. You're not going to get through any significant amount of history in one sitting. So the question is, when we talk about our racial education program. So we would have a summer program for the youth. What do we want to be teaching our children? We want to teach about Mr. Garvey, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass. That is going into that racial education, and that would be a private. That's not something that has to be publicly shared as far as what we're doing, what we're teaching. Always keep your good work before the government and make the government aware of it, particularly social work, charitable work, educational work. This does not mean racial education. Your racial education is private, like the Jews. Make the government aware of all public education tending toward good citizenship. It should be predominantly be brought to the attention of the government. So this is not where I thought he talked about dual education. I guess he'll talk about it later. But basically, Mr. Garvey will say, and again, I stressed this earlier, this Jews concept is going to keep coming up, and the comparison of what the Jews do and what we could be doing is constantly there throughout the text. And what Mr. Garvey says is that a Jewish student gets the same education that we get, that a Negro child would get in public school. But in addition to that public education, they would get a secondary education after school that's private. And the Negro's child would not get that. So again, compound that 10, 15 years of the Jewish child getting two forms of education and the Negro child only getting one. When they both turn 18 and go off to college, one has a completely different set of information that the other doesn't have. I think Mr. Garvey talked about it. I think he mentioned fraternities and things like that, where there's you get a separate education that's completely different, distinct, and private from the public education that everyone else is getting. And that's what we have to develop. That's what Mr. Garvey promotes for us to develop for our children in the UNIA. A private racial education to supplement public education. And where I was going here was, I spoke with a brother recently who was promoting that we need to work to have Garvey taught in public schools. He was saying, how good that would be, if we can get Garveyism taught in a certain public school that's named after Garvey. And I told him that sounds wonderful. That sounds great. But that doesn't sound like what Mr. Garvey promoted. Mr. Garvey, again, he promotes for us to develop our own separate education that's distinct from public education. So, and I had to ask him, because we don't control those environments. So 95% Black students, but what if you got 5% that's of a different culture? Now you want them to, you want to expose them to our stuff as well. So we got to control it. Only way to control it is for us to create it. So we must create our own separate secondary schools for our students to supplement public education. Dr. Kuda.
Oh, thank you, President John. I'm sorry if I'm delaying the class to the reading part, but this is just something that is on my mind right now. And I'm like, when did the United Nations start? Or when was it founded? It was founded in October 24, 1945. And when was the UNIA founded? The UNIA was founded in?
July 14th or 19th, 15th, I don't know. July 1914. I think July.
Now look at the difference, 1914 to 1945. So my gut feeling tells me that the United Nations was actually formed based on the Universal Negroes Improvement Association. They actually adopted Garvey's entire intellectual property, and they came up with the United Nations.
Well,
And my reasoning is, I was reading an article. I'm subscribed to Department of State, so I get like everything happening every day, speeches, whatever events are going on, I get the emails. So I was reading through an email where some representatives came from Nigeria to DC, and I was like wishing that I wish we were also there. These representatives came to speak with a team, but I think it's under Minister Blinken's department, and they're talking about technology. They're talking about AI. They're discussing and partnering with Nigeria, how America and Nigeria can partner. And at the end of the article, it even says Southern Africa. And I'm like, wow. But there were no Southern Africans, but there was only the Nigerians that went this meeting. I'm going to look for the article and I can share it, on the group. So we just kept abreast with what is happening. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with us trying to also find our space in all this. I find that us having relationships with the United Nations now, because the UNIA is largely American based, although Garvey's idea was for it to be the at the end of the day to be it was the partial government for Africa, like he was an interim head of African state. So it's like the UNIA being here in the US, it's like Africans, but we are in the US. Now, while we're here in the US, why not use the headquarters of the United Nations that's right here in the US to help us get to our ministers? I know we could do it directly, but like I said, with corruption at that level, it's very hard to get a buy-in from a president of an African country. Not that it's not possible. All I'm just saying, when you've studied the diplomacy or diplomatic module that we did, you'll understand that the strategies you need to apply to get to where you want to go. We can't just want to blindfold ourselves and say, we just can do it ourselves. No. We won't get there with that attitude. We got to leverage what is there. Like one of the members rightfully said, we pay taxes.
Yes.
So we also have a right to access resources.
Yes.
But it's how do we approach accessing those resources? And Garvey tells us we must be in good standing with the government. Because this is not our land where we are in America. Our land is Africa.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. That it just pains me. There's so much going on and we are being left out, whereas we're supposed to be there too in those discussions.
Yes. We got to catch up as a people, as a race. And that's, our job as leaders. We've accepted that responsibility. Not all of our people even know that we're behind or even accept the responsibility to help us get caught up. All right. Do I have a reader that can help us with lesson 11?
Got you, President John.
Thank you, Brother Macy's. Briefly, as I said, this is I don't say this often. This lesson is extremely important. When we talk about, again, this gives us the expectations that we should have for man. I use this a lot. You'll utilize this lesson a lot, especially when we're going out recruiting, talking to our people, working with our people. It'll give you a lot of understanding of what to expect, but it also gives you a solution to, I guess, the problem. So it's a very important lesson. And that's the best I can say. All right. Thank you. Brother Macy's, you have the floor.
Lesson 11. Man because of his sin, which caused him to have fallen from his high state of spiritual cleanliness to the level of a creature who acts only for his own satisfaction by the gift of free will, must be regarded as a dangerous creature of life. When he wants to, he can be good. Otherwise, he is generally bad. In dealing with him, you must calculate for his vices and his damnable evils. He is apt to disappoint you at any time. Therefore, you cannot wholly rely on him as an individual. Always try to touch him with the hope of bringing out that which is good, but be ever on your guard to experience the worst that is in him, because he is always in conflict with himself as between good and evil. When he can profit from evil, he will do it and forget goodness. This has been his behavior ever since the first record of his existence, as his first contact with his fellows. Cain slew Abel for his success. Jacob robbed Esau of his birthright, and down through the ages of human history, man has been robbing, exploiting, and murdering man for gain. Therefore, do not completely trust him, but watch him. When he is good, try to keep him good, although he may not always remain good. If he is bad, avoid him. If you have no business with him to the extent of being too much in his company, always try to reform him and use good influence on him, because the hope of life is to produce a better man. The passion of a man is in evidence everywhere. It revolts against affection, kindness, and even love when it has a personal object to attain. We have heard and read of children murdering their parents for gain, and parents murdering their children in a similar manner. We have heard of wives killing their husband and husbands killing their wives for gain. This reveals how wicked man can be. When we discuss man, we discuss the creature and not the particular individual whom we know, love, and can trust. Man, therefore, is the abstract creature who is vile until we know him personally. Seek first to know him before you completely trust him, because you are apt to be disappointed. A man shakes your hand today, and tomorrow he's a chief witness against you for execution. What is it that has caused him to do that? It is his vileness. Know it, then, that he is vile, and only when you know him sufficiently may you trust him as far as your judgment would dictate. He is apt to change on you, and probably at the psychological moment when you need his help the most. Therefore, in dealing with man, trust your own character and your own judgment more than depending absolutely on his. For most of the time, his advice to you is wrong and calculatingly so as to put you at a disadvantage. Hear everything from man, but do not believe everything until you have tested it for yourself. The history of the whole world shows that man has been the chief murderer or killer. He has killed more creatures than any other being. He plans his murders, which he may execute on individuals or on large groups of men, and he generally does this for profit, national profit, racial profit, political profit, or economic profit. He is so vile that he no longer depends upon his physical strength to execute his vileness or to defend himself. He manufactures the most deadly weapons to do the deed quickly while seeking self-protection from a similar attack. Therefore, contemplate the state of his mind. Contemplate that he would calmly, coolly, and collectively invent an instrumental or chemical purposely designed to kill his fellows at a point where they may not harm him to gain the property and possessions of his fellows. Can anything be more diabolical? No other animal sinks to this low, murderous level. Hence, man must be stripped of his veneer to see the evil machinations of his mind. The mind that makes TNT, high explosives, the mind that makes mustard gas, the mind that invents the Krupp gun, the Winchester rifle, the fast-proof caliber pistol, and poisons, all calculated to kill his brother. Do you want anything more? Do you know anything more wicked? Do you want anything more wicked? Now, can you realize how bad man is? If you do, then always be on guard, because you know not when the evil genius cometh. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Therefore, know your man, so that even though he comes with a smile, find out what is behind the smile. It is only a foolish man, who accepts another at his word without finding out something about him. Never fall in love at first sight and marry at the first opportunity. Never promise everything at the first request until you know the person is worthy of your promise. If you prize your own good fortune, never pledge it on the first approach of any man, but follow him, investigate him, and when his conduct coincides with what he states and what he promises you, may take the chance of trusting him just so far. Just so far. As proof of this, there are more unhappy marriages than happy ones, although based upon the best of promises at the start. There are more unhappy relationships between man than happy relationships, simply because the evil mind of man cannot keep good always. It is generally evil. This gives you sufficient evidence that man is vile and only in remote instances good. If you know it, then why take the chance of always believing before seeing? The taste of the pudding is the proof of it. Know your man before you believe. Never believe before you know. Always let your mission be to make man good. Therefore, talk to man always from the loftiest pinnacle. You may convert somebody, you may turn a vile man good. And if you succeed in doing this, this in even one instance, you have accomplished a great work. Leadership in good character must make sacrifice to raise man from the lowest depths. But it is blind foolishness to sacrifice more than necessary. Therefore, redeem the man with the least amount of harm to yourself. Education. The present system of education is calculated to subjugate the majority and elevate the minority. The system was devised and has been promulgated by agents of the minority. This system was carefully thought out by those who desire to control others for their benefit and to the disadvantage of the others, to the extent that the others would not immediately rise into happiness and enjoyment of life simultaneously and equally with them. It was never originally intended to make all the people equal at the same time. Even more so, was it not intended to elevate the darker race to the immediate standard of the white races. The minority sprung from the white race to establish the systems of education. Therefore, all textbooks and general literature are colored to suit the particular interest of those who established the system of education and the group they represent as against the interest of others whom they did not want to immediately elevate to their standard. There is always a limited process in the education of other races by the race that originates the system of education. As for instance, if a Negro attends a university with other students of the race that originated or projects that educational system, while the Negro would have the privilege of the classroom for general instructions to learn commonly, he may not have the privilege of his fellow students of the race who may be admitted to certain clubs, fraternities within the university from which he would be barred. Such fraternities generally enjoy the privilege of special instructions and special discussions, which convey a wider range of enlightenment on the subjects taught than would be possible to the Negro. Hence, when he graduates, even from the same textbook, his technical knowledge is not as wide as that of others who have had fuller explanation in the technical interpretation of that particular textbook. And at the same time, is only trained to reflect the system that props the intentions of the creators of that system. So that at his best, he who is making use of his education is a slave to a system that was not intended for him, but to which he renders service. Therefore, it is necessary for the Negro to be additionally educated or re-educated after he has imbibed the present system of education. The best way to do this is to educate him racially in the home, meeting hall, or his own club, where he will be put under the closest scrutiny and analysis of what appears to be education as coming from other people, because their system of education may not completely fit into the Negro ideas of his own preservation. By not being able to do this in the past, educated Negroes have not been able to assume proper leadership of their race because their education was of the nature to cause them to support the present system, which is of no advantage to the Negro except as a servant, serf, and slave, for which purpose really the system was devised to a certain extent. This explains the behavior of leading Negro intellectuals who are not able to dissect the educational system of others and use only the portion that would be helpful to the Negro race and add to it for a complete curriculum that would be satisfactory as a complete education for the race. Do not swallow wholly the educational system of any other group except you have perfectly analyzed it and found it practical and useful to your group. There is still room for the Negro educational system, free from the prejudices that the present educational system upholds against him. Never fail to impress upon the Negro that he is never thoroughly educated until he has imbibed racial education. It is by education that we become prepared for our duties and responsibilities in life. If one is badly educated, he must naturally fail in the proper assumption and practices of his duties and responsibilities. The Negro fails in the proper assumptions of his duties and responsibilities because he has been badly educated. He has universally failed to measure up to his duties and responsibilities as a man and as a race. His education has been subversive. He must now make his educational practical and real. Hence, he must rearrange everything that affects him in his education to be of assistance to him in reaching out to his responsibilities and duties. As you shouldn't expect another man to give you the clothing that you need to cover your own body, so you should not expect another race to give you the education to challenge their right to monopoly and mastery, to take for yourself that which they also want for themselves. You are going to distrust the other man in his honesty because you know him to be dishonest, then you must maintain the attitude in every respect. For if he is dishonest in one, he may be dishonest in all. If he will rob you of your wages, he will also rob you of your education that would enable you to know that he is robbing you of your wages. Trust only yourself and those you know and those who look like you. Those who look like you and are related to you ought to be known first before you know others. There may be good grounds for a common education of all groups in the community, such as civic education, political and social education. But this detailed education that teaches men how to live to the highest and enjoy the best is particular education that particular education is always reserved for those who want to gain an advantage. Therefore, if in no other way in particular, secure education and have your own, such as the Jews, who have outside of any common education, a particular and peculiar education of their own, which augments of, or adds to or modifies the common education that they have gathered in the community with others. By view of the fact that the Jews get a dual education, the education of the state and the education of his race, he is always in a unique position to worsen or to better his compatriots of another race in the community. He is always making more out of everything than the Gentile, as he knows all about the Gentile, while the Gentile knows nothing about him. That's lesson 11.
Thank you, Brother Macius. I'll open it up for any questions or comments before I make my statements. Dr. Kuda?
I'm sorry, I was just posting the clapping hand, so I
Okay.
put the wrong emoji. Thank you so much for the great read.
Excellent job, First Vice President. It's 10:18. We'll try to be brief. As I said, it's a very important lesson from leadership standpoint as we go out to recruit, but also, as we look up to leadership. Brother Macy, is one of the things that we talk about a lot, is trust. But how do we develop that trust? Mr. Garvey says that we should treat man in general, men that we don't know, men and women that we don't know, the stranger, as a vile creature. And, until there's a process of development, we should, not treat them as such, but protect ourselves by making sure we understand the expectation. So, as I said, this is a very important lesson because it'll give people, if people have a sense of not being trusted, not feeling trusted, not trusting others, part of that is should be expected. Until we see something that validates the trust. Mr. Garvey encourages us to be skeptical. I would say, Sister Aquette.
Yeah, that was very good, lesson 11. So I wonder, with all of that, I guess Marcus Garvey at the end of the day didn't actually trust anyone 100%.
Well, I would probably say yes. I don't think it's safe to trust anyone 100% outside of yourself.
President John, her question kind of go with my comment that I was going to comment on. One of my things is that I trust everybody. I trust that everybody can or has the capacity to fail me. So what I've already, I trust that they can or have the capacity to fail my expectations or to wrong me. So what it helped me do is to prepare my response towards people prior, because I know they have that capacity. I can already prepare how I will respond to it, because I know that we all, like, not biblical, but we all sin and falling short. Like Garvey is basically saying, everybody could. I mean, a man is originally evil, and everybody has the capacity to maybe make a bad decision.
That reminds me of a DMX said something like that. Like, you gotta, people going to show you who they are, and you have to, trust what they're showing you in a sense. So I follow. I'm gonna send that to you when I find it. Got a couple other hands.
Oh, I know it.
Okay. Brother Moyama.
Yo, it's DMX. Yeah, speaking of poem, yeah, it reminds me of Mr. Garvey's poem, two of them actually. One Bob Marley quoted, "Man to man, the so unjust children, you don't know
who to trust."
Yeah, it might have been sang by Bob, but it was written by Marcus. But
oh wow,
also,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yes, indeed. And but I wanted to let the ladies know, since y'all spoke up there, that when he says man, he's talking about woman too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know.
And I wanted to bring out one of his poems on women, where he says, "She makes one happy, then miserable. You are to her kind, then unkind, constant yet inconstant. Thus we have woman. No real man could do without her." Yeah, in so many words though. Yeah, men and women are pieces of work, and yeah, definitely when they show you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
But yeah, it's hard for some of us to not fall in love at first sight. But yeah, there's a whole lot of lessons in there. But it's hard to see Lola Falana not fall in love at first sight. It's hard to see a whole lot of supermodels and say, wow, man, boy, I make a great woman out of her, and woo, and she's evil and filthy and is gutter as it can get, and you just see the beauty and just you just create your own personality out of the person you're looking at. But yeah, we definitely had to keep our guards and reservations about folks. But yeah, there's a lot of power to that lesson. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yes,
I wanted to say it in my DMX voice, but it make my throat hurt after
Yes, Sister Quet, I'm gonna get to you in just a second. And again, just this lesson is extremely important for me and for those that are in the 421 administration. You must understand that we are directed to reserve that highest level of trust until there has been some form of a rites of passage. And that is why this course of African philosophy is so important, because that is what I treat this as. If officers are not willing to sit through the course of African philosophy, if we're not willing to, put forth our best effort in the exams, then that causes me to question, our level of dedication as Garveyites in 421. So that's why this lesson is so important. And after, officers can attest to this. After officers go through course of African philosophy, the expectation changes, the communication changes. But prior to that, as Mr. Garvey said, I can't put a level of responsibility on anyone if I haven't gone through the training for individuals to accept that responsibility. So that's the way I summarize this lesson, and that's how I try to emphasize the importance of this lesson. Sister Aquette.
Yeah, so it's kind of sad in a sense also, and a little lonely. So you saying we're never gonna really have that ride or die. It's gonna be on our side. But then you said you go through the rites of passage. But but there is a quote that's saying, the work, and especially being a revolutionary, it's a lonely job. But I don't know. I see a little sadness and loneliness in this as well.
Happy to that.
I mean, you can interpret it different way. It was a great summary that Mr. Garvey had here that when Omasius was reading, I remember thinking to myself, that paragraph summarizes what you're talking about. It was one of the last paragraphs. Yeah.
I think that
Well, I thought this. No, I might have lost it. This is one of them. Leadership, sacrifice. So leadership, we must make sacrifice to raise man from the lowest depth. So we are trying to uplift humanity, and in that process, we're going to come across, a lot of individuals that haven't necessarily thought of that mindset and mentality, and they are just surviving. And in that survival process, we know, sometimes we must be more animalistic than human. But it's blind foolishness to sacrifice more than necessary. Therefore, redeem the man with the least amount of harm to yourself. So it is. We have to be cautious as we go out and do our best analysis on the individuals that we come across, and try not to put ourselves in a position of harm.
I think that
went down way too far. Lady President.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual, practicing the golden rule, kind of looking at the man or the woman in the mirror, so to speak. And as leaders, if we do that, we operate with the highest level of integrity and things of that nature. I think as leaders, as we do that, we will develop the trust. We'll develop a certain level of trust and honor amongst each other. And then when others see us operating in a certain manner, then in a sense, I mean, you're not going to impact everybody, but in a sense, they kind of see what leadership looks like. They kind of see what Black excellence look like. And they kind of strive for that, at least you hope the younger ones. But I think it all starts with us individually. And that's the only way it can start, really.
Yes, it's a delicate approach, because later on we're going to talk about winning mankind by kindness. So we are encouraged to be out, to be in public, to be charitable, to be social. But also, I think this lesson is very important in the back of our minds, behind that smile, behind that friendly, outgoing mentality, we must also uh, keep in mind the the humanity of men and women. And we must protect ourselves is basically where I'm going. And don't put we can't be naive, I think is the sentiment that Mr. Garvey's expressing here. Any other questions? 10:30. We do need to wrap.
I just wanted to add the question that Sister Arquette asked about trust. What came to my mind was the documentary that I watched a couple of months ago on Marcus Garvey and his father in a graveyard, because his father, I think, used to build graves or something like that. And the father went down the grave with a stepladder with him, and the father came up, pulled out the stepladder, and left Garvey in the grave. And from the question that Sister Arquette is asking, I think it's more on about reliability. I recall in the documentary, they mentioned that from that day, he realized that he cannot rely on anybody but himself. So Lady President Diane just covered the issue of trust very nicely, and trust is earned. We earn it based on how we communicate with people, how we work with people, and you can put trust in. Like for me right now, I have so much trust in you, President John, because you're so consistent with the trainings that you've taken us through, the time you put into it. So I trust you've earned that trust from me. Yes. I trust you with whatever you give to me, education-wise. I trust it's coming from a good place. So trust is earned. It's how you put yourself out there. Like Lady President said, it starts with us, nowhere else. We got to start to build that relationship so we can trust one another. But Garvey, his point was he don't rely on another person. Do things yourself. Don't rely on someone to get it done for you. Yes. And this is why when he even started the business of the Star Line and so on, and the ships that he had, I saw how some of the men were working on the ships for him, the sailors, how the one even made a detour to go visit his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's where the issues of, you know, whoever he worked with, he was more comfortable working with people like Mama Henrietta
Benton
Davis.
Yes.
You know, as she, I think, was once also the Secretary General, if I'm not mistaken, and his wives, the Amy Jockers and Amy Garvey, yeah. So, but I just wanted to respond to Sister Arquette that Lady President Diane responded very, eloquently that we have to, it has to start with us, the trust issue. But with Garvey, it was about don't rely on other people to get things done for you. Do them yourself.
Yes. I'll close out with this paragraph. If you prize your own good fortune, never pledge it on the first approach of any man, but follow him, investigate him, and when his conduct coincides with that which he states. So when your actions align with your speech, and what he promises, you may take the chance of trusting him just so far. So after their actions align with what they say, then you can take the chance of trusting them. Then he says, as for proof, there are more unhappy marriages than happy ones, although based upon the best of promises at the start. So we say a lot up front, but when it actually gets into the thick of things, we don't follow through. There are more unhappy relations than happy ones, simply because the evil mind of man cannot keep good always. Generally, the mind is generally evil. It gives you sufficient evidence that man is vile and only in remote instances good. If you know it, why take the chance of always believing before seeing? The taste of the pudding is the proof of it. Know your man before you believe. Never believe before you know. Always let your mission be to make man good. Therefore, talk to man always from the loftiest pinnacle. You may convert somebody. You may turn a vile man good. And if you succeed in doing this even one instance, you have accomplished a great work. So we know what we must do. We know we must interact and uplift. But make sure that we're individuals that we claim to trust have earned our trust. Okay. All right. It's 10:35. We will move to close. We'll come back next week with questions on lesson 11, and we'll do reading for lesson 12, Purpose of Institutions. It's a great lesson. Okay. I'll close us out tonight, if everyone would. Please put your black fists in the air. Repeat after me. One God.
One God.
One God.
One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
One destiny.
Africa for the African.
Africa for the Africans.
Those at home.
Those at home.
And those abroad.
Those abroad.
And for Dr. Shams, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you
Up you mighty race,
accomplish what you will.
Race family.
Race first.
Good night, peace and race first, everyone.
Race